We need to go on a short break. When we come back, we shall be looking at the forthcoming Anambra election and the possibility of a state of emergency. And of course, we'll be joined by Barrister Paul Omoluabi, a legal practitioner based in Abuja, and Dr. Patrick Duru, a lecturer at the Anambra State University, Oka, in Anambra State. We'll be back shortly. As we speak, we are being joined by Dr. Henry Duru, a mass communication lecturer at Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Okwa, Anambra State, and Barrister Paul Omoluabi, an Abuja-based legal practitioner. Welcome, gentlemen, to Inside Nigeria here at the Leadership Podcast Studio this morning.
Good morning.
Appreciate it. Good morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Good morning.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good to have you.
Yeah. Okay, let me go to Barrister Paul Omoluabi, an Abuja-based public affairs analyst and legal practitioner. Barrister Paul.
I appreciate it. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, from the legal perspective, tell us, is this the right thing to do at this moment or not?
They can, in law, it's difficult to just have one straight answer to issues. Legally, when we talk about emergency rule, declaration of emergency rule, the president has that exclusive power to declare any part of the country to be in a state of emergency where certain issues that has to do with human life and property are threatened. But also, we also should also put into consideration Section 35 of the 1999 Constitution that talks about the fundamental human right of freedom of movement and protection of human right and all of that. We cannot but equally argue that sometimes there are situations where some of these fundamental human rights are not absolute. And in the case of Anambra State, as it stands now, the president and the security architecture or the security outfit must have carried out their assignment, and it's possible they know certain things that we don't know as a public. And the president, at the advice of the security outfit, can declare a state of emergency, particularly when they discover that the life and properties of human in that jurisdiction will be exposed to danger. As I said, the right to fundamental fundamental human right, as it were, freedom of movement and all of that, cannot be said to be absolute, where there are situations that the same president who has sworn to the Constitution to protect life and property still needs to protect the life and property of individuals in the country. So if the president, in his own reasoning and in wisdom, and after carrying out series of investigation and all of that, and he feels that the environment is not safe for election, then of course is allowed by the Constitution, if it goes by the Constitution, to suspend every activity and ensure that the security of that environment is restored and confidence is restored in the life of those within that jurisdiction. I think what the president is trying to do at the long run is to ensure that the people in that environment are safe first, and the life and property are safe, because we have all been in the media, we've been following up what is happening in that environment. From the reports we are getting, it is obvious that it is not safe to even do anything, any transaction within that environment. And the other angle to it is the question you said something just now, that is it that the president or the security heads can deploy sufficient security to the environment? Of course they can, but it still depends on the information they have, the investigation they have carried out. And if the information they have is very disturbing, it is important to put a check by suspending every human activity, declare the environment as a state of emergency, and ensure that things are restored before the normal activity will begin. Thank you.
Where do we go from here? There are opposition already mounting, growing against the federal government's idea of a possible declaration of state of emergency. So, what is the worst case scenario?
Beautiful. We are in a country where we have laws. We have the 1999 Constitution, which is the ground norm that governs the entire country. Whoever that feels that the step the president is taking is not the appropriate step, we have the right channel. It is not violence. We have the right channel to ventilate our actions. If anybody feels that the step the president is taking or likely to take in declaring Anambra State as a state of emergency, as it were, it is expected that that person should approach a court of competent jurisdiction and cry loud to the court, informing the court that, look, there is every likelihood that my right to freedom of movement, my right to expression and association is going to be infringed on. Then, of course, since we are governed by laws, it is left for the court to look at whatever the person and aggrieved party has canvassed and come out with a decision that will either stop the president from declaring the state as a state of emergency, or even allow the president to go ahead, because of course the president will also have his own representation in the suit, and depose reasons why the state has to be declared a state of emergency. Okay, so like as I said, parties, whoever that is agree, whether in group or an individual, they have the right to go to court, approach the relevant court, canvass your request, make your prayers, give reasons why you need to continue to enjoy your freedom of movement, you need to enjoy your fundamental human right, as it were. You must give reason, and of course you also have to give the opportunity for the president, who will join in the matter, to also give reason why the state is not safe at this moment, and the reason why they have to suspend whatever activity that is ongoing to protect life. So the court has that exclusive discretion to decide either way, to either decide that, look, the president, you have acted in excess of your power. It is not as bad as people think. If parties from that axis are saying that we are safe, our life is safe, we can continue our daily transaction and all of that, then of course the president will also have to remind the court that he is on oath. He has sworn to defend the country, to defend human rights, to defend life and property, and that he will not be able to sleep when he sees that life and property are being destroyed, and order needs to be put in place. So basically, the court is the final place to run to as it stands now. If anybody feels his right is likely going to be breached, he should please run to the court and seek protection from the court, and the final decision comes from the court. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Barrister, if you are
Yes,
not
yes.
talking from legal perspective now, let's ask you as a Nigerian, you know what is happening every day and you know the happenings in the polity. Can the fears of the opposition be justified? Because they're already saying this is a ploy by the federal government to rig the Anambra election. Because if a state of emergency is declared, a sole administrator will be appointed, and he will be an appointee of the ruling APC. So can their fears be justified?
Yes, it's still very dicey. If I have to speak like a layman, let me leave law for now and talk like a layman. As an opposition, what do you expect? An opposition is an opposition, and it will never see anything good coming from his opponent. An opposing party is expected to come up with his own view that is not comfortable with. That, of course, the fear is if you allow this to go, an administrator will be appointed by the other party, and our right of franchise to elect whoever we want to elect will be frustrated. Now, let me tell you, an opposition is expected to always cry. That is why he's in a position of opposition. He can't be clapping for the other party that you are doing the right thing. So it's expected that the opposition should fight back, whether legally or morally or whatever form. They should cry to the high heavens and say, look, we are not comfortable with the position. These are the likely, because they have to protect themselves. These are the likely areas who will be injured. We are likely going to be completely silenced from governance. So an opposition is expected to cry. And most time, the cry will be a favorable cry to his own side. An opposition will hardly praise the other party if he's doing well, because opposition wants to be in power and he wants to do everything to see that the public follows him. So if I have to discuss like a layman, it is expected that the opposition should come up with whatever they feel they are injured with. But of course, the other party will also come up with what they feel. It's balanced, but note that the person who is in power has so much power on him to decide what he feels. But however, that's the beauty of law. We still have the law work for us. So as a layman, you have little or nothing to rely on. So you have to run back to law and stretch your rights under the legal principles to see that right is protected. Thank you.
All right. Many thanks to you, Barrister Bob Omoluabi. I don't know if we still have Dr. Henry Duru with us from Anambra. All right, Dr. Henry. Yeah, good. You are in Anambra. You see things for yourself. So tell us, what is your feeling with the possibility of a state of emergency in Anambra ahead of the governorship election?
Okay. First of all, we need to appreciate the peculiarity of the situation that we have here right now. Some persons have actually stated rightly that what is happening here is not different from what has been happening in other places. That is in terms of the nature of the breakdown in law and order. When you talk about killing, when you talk about kidnapping, we have seen that in other parts of Nigeria, even on a larger scale. But if you ask me, I will say that comparing what is happening in Anambra State with what has been happening in other parts of the country may not be the right thing to do at the moment. We need to actually contextualize the situation in Anambra State. We are talking about an election, and we are talking about a situation that is threatening the election. So within the context of that election, within the context of successfully and safely having an election and averting a constitutional crisis that is likely to arise if that election is not held, I will say that we have a very difficult, a very unusual situation. So when someone suggests declaration of a state of emergency, I think it is not completely out of place. But secondly, if you look at it from the perspective of the fears raised by the opposition regarding the implication of such emergency declaration on the oncoming election, you will ask one question first. Declaration of a state of emergency, does it necessarily entail removal of the governor? Some legal opinions have actually been pushed in that regard, and right from the time Obasanjo declared a state of emergency in Plateau State, that was in 2004, we had the same legal opinion saying that removal of a governor without recourse to the Constitution is illegal. It is irregular because the Constitution has stated clearly the circumstances in which a state governor may be legally removed and then the process or processes for such removal, and none of them includes a state of emergency. I think what happened is that we have been following a wrong precedent since Tafawa Balewa set that precedent in 1962 when he declared a state of emergency in the Western region. The premier was removed while a sole administrator was appointed. Then we saw Obasanjo following that same precedent in 2004 in Plateau State when Governor Darie was removed, and then later in Ekiti State when, via the instrumentality of state of emergency, he removed Governor Ayodele Fayose of that state. But then,
Dr. Henry, I need to cut you short because of time. You may not need to go on that historical lane again because of time. We have just few seconds. Just tell us.
Let me just conclude that.
Okay.
Yes, let me conclude that. But okay, we saw an exception to that. Yes, we saw an exception to that when Jonathan declared a state of emergency in 3 northeast states of Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe. The governors remained. So I think declaration of a state of emergency, once we remove that fear of removal of a governor, once we do it constitutionally, it's not a problem. So that fear will be unfounded if we follow the law. Yeah.
All right. So if we take away the argument for state of emergency or otherwise, now are you concerned that even the commission responsible for free and fair election, INEC, its capacity to declare or to deliver that job has been threatened because its facilities, assets, human and materials are being destroyed?
Yes. Yes, I'm very much concerned. If you look around the states now, you don't see any electioneering activity. People are even afraid of putting on caps that has a political party's logo. You don't see branded vehicles as we usually see. So there is a state of almost a state of law when it comes to electioneering, and that is very unusual when you are talking about an election that is just 4 weeks from yesterday. So I think I'm very worried as to the capacity of INEC to deliver that. And I can confidently predict that we're going to have a very low turnout of voters if the election eventually holds under these circumstances.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Henry Duru, Mass Communication Lecturer at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University in Awka, Anambra State, who has been speaking to us from ground zero. And of course, our second guest, Barrister Paul Omoluabi, for creating time to join us on Inside Nigeria this morning. Many thanks to both of you, and we hope to see more of you on this show. Winifred, it's time to go.
They'll be signaling us, our IT people, that yes, it's time. So tomorrow is another day. Keep a date with us.
All right, from here too, my name is Bode Gbadebo. Bye for now.